All right, thank you very much, Kweku Timing, with the latest in the world of business. And I think one issue that is quite dominant when it comes to issues of business is food and agriculture. I have two guests with me this morning. We're going to be talking about food security and how the world is getting ready or psyching itself up in case there is a shortage. Or is there? We are already picking up reports that climate change, drought, and the rest are already causing some countries to run short on food supply. But we have people who can tell us about how globally we can help ensure that there is productivity that always meets demand. Let me introduce my guest, then we can go straight into the discussion. On my immediate left, we have Dr. Scott Angle. He is the President and Chief Executive Officer of IFDC. Now, IFDC is International Fertilizer Development Center, and he's joined us to talk about issues regarding food security in Ghana. And they have the Ghanaian representative, who is Sheila Asibe Yeboah, Deputy Programs Leader, Ghana Veg, it stands for
Ghana
Veg.
Veg.
Okay,
Yes.
Ghana Veg Program, and she would also be helping us put into perspective the issue of food security as far as Ghana is concerned. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, to start with, let me start with you, Scott. How is the global demand for food like presently? And is there a shortage in that demand?
Well, keep in mind that the population of the world continues to grow. There are a little over 7 billion people on this planet now. We think we're going to have perhaps as many as 10 billion people on this planet here by the year 2050. So the population is growing. Also, people's economic situation is improving. For people who live in dire poverty, the first thing you want when you have more money is to buy more food and better food. So the combination of more food and the desire for higher quality food is suggesting, I think, informing us that by the year 2050, we're pretty much going to have to double the amount of food that we produce on this planet. We've been keeping up pretty well so far. It's not to suggest that there aren't hungry people on this planet. That's typically more of a question of demand and getting the food at the right time to the right place. So we've done okay so far, but we're quite worried about the future. How are we going to keep up with this demand for food? Also keep in mind that there's no more land, and there will be probably less water in the future as a result of climate change. So we're going to have to grow more food. We're going to have to double the amount of food produced on a per acre basis without any more water. It's really a challenge that...
So clearly there is a challenge there when it comes to food and the world population, if you want to balance the two.
It's quite a challenge, and we think we can meet this goal, but it's going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of support from many groups, whether it's the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, universities that teach agriculture, or private groups like the International Fertilizer Development Center. We're all going to have to work hard to make sure that we can double food production on a per acre basis.
Okay, let's shift the attention to Africa. Africa is seen as the one of the major sources of food supply because of the very arable lands and fertile lands we have for growing food. Even on the continent of Africa, we have issues with the amount of food we produce as against the number of people that get the food and get to eat them. And what are some of the challenges you have seen with regard to the African story?
Well, I think it's a technology issue. How do we get the inputs needed? So fertilizers are one input. How do we control insects, pests? How do we assure that the food is safe to eat? There are other significant problems that people are concerned about that have yet to be contributed to over the course of the next 35 years.
Wow. Okay. Let me bring in Sheila now. Sheila, I mean, let's tell the Ghana story. Do we have enough food to feed the number of Ghanaians we have?
Well, that's $1 million question to start with, and there's no straightforward answer. It's just that currently in Ghana we are doing more of rain-fed agriculture. We're not intensifying agriculture. We're not focusing more on improved technology. We're doing something, but then we still have a lot to bring on the table in terms of getting there. So if we don't change rapidly, it might be a problem.
Change. What and where should we change?
Scott mentioned land. The land tenure system in Ghana is a big challenge, even for farmers who want to practice crop rotation. It poses a challenge to farmers who have plans to expand and do more. Water is also another problem. We have to bring on board new irrigation technologies, new ideas to make use or efficient use of water, to make sure that we're doing year-round production. We can't continue relying on the rains, which because of global warming issues, climate change, which you've mentioned, has changed. We now have rains in December, and if we don't adopt new strategies to try and let technology lead the way, and in technology we're also not leaving out machinery, equipment. Research is also very important.
That brings me to my next question. I think I'll throw this to Scott. You have been considering the fact that you serve a global population, when you take into consideration the African continent, do you think we are mechanized enough? And do we have the requisite fertilizer to ensure that our growth is able to be sustained for at least the next 10, 15 years?
Well, on the fertilizer issue, I think the answer as a continent is no. There are some countries where there are adequate amounts or close to adequate amounts of fertilizer being used. There are other countries where they're only using 10 to 20% of the needed fertilizer to achieve the maximum yield of that crop. And so the food they're producing is in much smaller quantities because of that. Mechanization, absolutely, on the continent, more mechanization will be required in the future. And the reason that is so important, when you are not using machinery, it takes almost one person to produce enough feed for their family. And when you're in that situation, there's not enough extra labor then to go out and develop the rest of your economy, to work in industry or the service sector. So farmers, when they're in what we call subsistence farming, smallholder farms, there's not enough freed up labor then to improve the overall economy. And the way you solve that problem is through mechanization. Right. Machines can replace human labor, and that frees up other people then to go out and build the economy.
Okay, then let's put into perspective the role that IFDC would play or would have to play when it comes to issues of agriculture generally in Africa. What role will that be, and have you already started in that regard?
Well, we certainly have, and Sheila can address some of the specific Ghana issues, but fertilizer is one of the main components to improving crop and agricultural productivity. Here in Ghana, more fertilizer is needed, and we need to get it into the hands of farmers very quickly so that yields can be improved. It's not just fertilizers, it's the entire value chain. So it's the inputs, the fertilizers, pesticides, but then it's making sure that the plant genetics are appropriate, we're growing the right crops, we have the proper machinery and technologies to grow the plants in the field. We need to look at economics, where the farmer is going to sell their crops. So once they start doubling or tripling yields, is there a market for them to move those crops into the private sector?
Okay. Sheila, do we have, what role has IFDC played in Ghana? And then I'm sure farmers who have success stories can attest to the fact that yes, they have yield, but do they have the markets that would take these produce?
Yes, IFDC doesn't work only with farmers, but also with other sector players, including the market and service providers, input dealers, various actors along the value chain commodities that we deal in. Linking farmers to markets is something that we do and we continue to do. And if you look at the current interventions that we're working in Ghana, we're doing cocoa intensification and rehabilitation. We're also working in the developing the sustainable commercial vegetable sector here in Ghana. We're also working in agricultural technology transfer We're doing work in fertilizer, ensuring that appropriate fertilizers become affordable, and that's in the sub-region. So all these interventions deal with several actors along the chain where we link these farmers to markets, because that's the only way we can ensure sustainability.
Okay, and then what is the future like? Going forward, what is IFDC going to be doing to, first of all, ensure that all these major players or the stakeholders in the value chain, like you mentioned, keep up the collaboration and will continue to have success stories to tell?
Currently, we're pushing the agenda of farmers seeing farming as a business, and then also industry doing things differently. So new ways of doing business, which means collaboration with other sectors. You don't have to do it all. You take one portion that you do well, and you do that, and make sure that you're linked up with other sectors. If farmers change their way of thinking, it's a behavioral change thing, then they see that it's not just a way of living, but it's a way of making money and making impact. And therefore, they put in more, they invest more, because sometimes it's difficult for farmers to even invest in seeds. They'd rather rely on the saved seeds, which don't yield much. So changing the way we think, changing the way we do things, knowing that long-term investments, good investments in agriculture yield sustainable results.
Okay. My final words from Scott as we wrap up this discussion.
Well, fertilizers are important. Using the right type of fertilizer, which comes from research and education, can double, triple, sometimes quadruple yields, and that can significantly increase the profit that farmers make. That allows the entire economy to improve. So we're one player trying to help improve yields. There are many other in your country, but we're here to do our part.
Okay, there's a fear about genetically modified organisms, and I'm sure that it's come up severally in your trips in Africa. What is your take on GMOs and the fact that Africa has some level of fear or uncertainty when it comes to genetically modified organisms?
Well, we don't take a position on political issues like that. We will support the country decision, and whatever that might be, and help move either the GMO or non-GMO crop productivity forward.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. We'll be speaking with Dr. Scott. Is it Angle?
Correct.
Okay, Dr. Scott Angle. He is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the International Fertilizer Development Center, and also Sheila Asibe Iyaboa. She is the Deputy Programs Leader for Ghana Veg Program, and they've been helping us have a discussion on food security, what the needs are, what we need to ensure that we have good enough yield all year round. And as the world population grows, we also need to ensure that we do enough to feed all the mouths that are going to be joining the population in the coming years. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for having this discussion with us this morning.